everyone, this is Reena Jadhav here at Vator Splash, having a fabulous time meeting with Michelle Snyder of Welltok. Hi Michelle.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for making time. This conference is fabulous and we're hearing a lot about the exciting technologies, and Welltok is clearly a leader.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Welltok.
Great. Well, we're a software as a service health optimization platform, and basically what we're trying to do is put the consumer in the center of healthcare and create a platform that's consumer focused that brings all the different resources together for the consumer into one seamless experience, and then actually rewards them for things that they're doing to improve their health and optimize their health.
What's your business model?
So our business model is that we sell to population health managers, and that could be health plans, it could be large self-insured employers, it could be government programs, it could even be provider systems that are at risk, and they sponsor our platform for their populations.
And when you talk about these different constituents, how hard or easy has it been to work with them? And what's the secret to working with them?
The secret, that is a good question. One thing I would say is perseverance.
Okay.
For those of you that are in the healthcare industry, you know that we often have, it takes a long time for change to happen,
yes.
And we're really developing a new paradigm in healthcare where we're trying to put the consumer in the center, which most organizations like health plans and even provider organizations haven't had that lens of looking at people from a consumer perspective. They're usually looking at them from a patient perspective, or if you're a health plan, you're often thinking about them as a claim.
Yes.
Right? You only really
yes.
want to engage with that person when they cause a claim. And so we're trying to take kind of this population health view and say, we have to start with the consumer. What are their needs? What are their interests? And how can we help them optimize their health? And that ultimately will drive value for all the population health managers in the system.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, we were talking earlier about the data that you're pulling in.
Yeah.
So what is the data that you're pulling in, and how are you leveraging that to help you succeed?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the most exciting things about our model. If you think about where most of the money and the investment in healthcare has gone, it's been around clinical-based systems and technology and claims-based systems. So money has gone into EMRs, EHRs, scheduling tools, benefit management tools. But there really hasn't been a consumer health platform which really starts with the consumer in the middle, as opposed to, for example, EMRs are really around doctors and billing, right? Versus how are we actually helping the consumer? And so in order to do that, we've thought about the fact that you can't just pull in clinical and claims data. You really need to pull in other data that is consumer focused, and the reason that's important is that even if you or I were ill, we're still spending 90+% of our time in consumer mode. We're not in a hospital, we're not in a doctor's office, we're making choices every day about our health.
Right.
And so bringing in data that's about us as consumers, that might be shopping behavior or demographic behavior or even voting records, what we found is that data is actually more valuable to predicting how people will behave regarding their health than retrospective clinical and claims data. Now that data is important too, but what you really need to do is take the claims data, the clinical data, and then this other consumer data, as well as data from the individual, like you or I. I mean, it's kind of funny to think like this, but most people in the healthcare industry don't think about asking us, what do we want to do with our health, right? What are our goals?
We know?
What are our motivations?
Right.
What's going to make me want to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
Or what's going to make me want to be less stressed? So taking all that data together gives you a much more predictive model about an individual and how you can engage them in their health.
Marketing 101, core profiling.
Exactly.
Amazing. Finally comes to
consumer.
healthcare. That's fantastic. So if you're super successful, how do you impact that percentage of GDP spend on sick care, or where do you see your big footprint in being successful 5 years out?
Yeah, so I think if we are successful 5 years out, I mean, one thing we're doing is we're improving the health of populations, right? I actually have written a couple articles on the term population health as a misnomer, because in order to do that, you have to do that one individual at a time. You can't take a whole population and say, we're going to improve you together, right?
Correct.
So it's one person at a time, but eventually it's improving population health, so improving the health status of individuals, but then also reducing costs, right? So if you can get to people before they get into those episodic, into the episodic care part of the system and help them with programs and resources to help them make better choices regarding their health.
Okay.
Ultimately, you'll help the system reduce costs.
That sounds great. So for those entrepreneurs out there listening to you, especially the female entrepreneurs that are looking at healthcare and saying, I want to do this, what is your biggest recommendation other than perseverance?
For females or any entrepreneurs?
Let's start with females and then we'll broaden up to include
So
men.
I would love to talk about this because I actually spent some time in venture as an executive in residence.
Right.
And one thing I would say is that females often are more realistic about their businesses and when they're pitching and talking about their ideas, and even when they're talking about the market potential. And I think there's a balance to be had between being realistic, but also, I hate to say this, being more like a guy in the sense of talking about a huge market potential and you're going to take over the world and you're going to impact and not focus so much on the realities of here's the challenges I'm going to face, because we all know everybody has challenges. But I think women tend to be a little more realistic, which is actually why I tended to rather invest in women. But if you are pitching in our kind of male-dominated venture world, I think you maybe also have to put on a different lens. And
that's great advice. That's fabulous. And let's broaden up to the men. So if you're a guy getting into healthcare startup, what is your one big advice?
My big advice is really make sure whatever your idea is, that if you want to get funding for it, it has to have or think about how big the market potential is. Because when I'm sitting in from the investor's lens, right, there's three things I'm looking at. One is, how big is the market? Do you have the right people and do you have the right product, right? You can always change the people at your company. You can always improve your product or make changes. What you can't change is making a small market potential into a big market potential. So that's the main thing I would say, is really think about what is the problem you're solving, and is there a big enough market for that. And it may be the case that you just want to build a small company and it's a niche product, and that's fine too. But if you're thinking of going big, as an investor, I'm always sitting there thinking about what is the real market potential for this.
Well, I have to ask you a follow-on question to that. What is not being done? Where do you feel is there, because there's so much being done. I mean, I feel like you lift a rock and there's 20 companies doing the same thing. Where do you feel no one's really doing anything yet in a meaningful way?
That's a good question. Well, I would probably flip it a little bit. I think what I'd probably talk about is where we're at the infancy, where I think there's huge opportunity in healthcare. And I would say one area I'm really excited about is cognitive computing and artificial intelligence. Because if you think of all the data that there is in healthcare, it's not going to be possible for humans to go through that data and make sense of it. And leveraging cognitive computing and artificial intelligence, not just on the clinical side, but on the consumer side, right? And taking all the variables that we know about people and making sense of those and helping then predict how people will behave and advise people about resources that are available. I think that's a huge area for growth. And I think we're just at the infancy. IBM Watson has been successful getting things going, but I think it's going to be the next 5 to 10 years where we really see that breakout.
Michelle, thank you so much. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you so much.